Hey y'all, here we are. I'm really doing it. I'm going to be duping the vibes today of the Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse eyeshadow palette. Yesterday I posted a video anti-hauling holiday makeup releases, some of which I feel are mystifying garbage and some of which are things that I'm really drawn to and kind of want, but none of which I'm buying. This palette is one of the ones that I'm kind of drawn to. I actually said in that video that I think it's the holiday release that I've felt the most impressed by, the most intrigued and inspired by of all of them so far, but I guess it's probably going to just be all of them because I think that we're pretty much done probably with holiday releases. In any case, the way that I deal with that desire these days, because I'm not really out here buying eyeshadow palette after eyeshadow palette, is to do something that I call duping the vibes. Duping the vibes is a phrase that I coined to describe the act of taking the resources that you already have, the makeup you already have, and trying to create the look on your face or the looks that you would create on your face if you were to buy the thing that you're craving, thereby showing yourself that you don't need the thing and also getting to take advantage of the inspiration, getting to reap the joys, the actual concrete joys that new makeup sometimes does bring us, but reaping it from the makeup that we already own so we don't have to spend money, don't have to acquire new stuff, and we continue to make good use of what we have. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Hannah. I love beautiful things, and sometimes I do buy myself stuff. I have a budget for that, so I make sure that I don't go overboard, but you know, I do buy myself some things over the course of every year. And I do review things here on my channel. Sometimes I review PR, sometimes I buy things for review, but I'm always making sure to remind myself and remind you guys that you don't have to overspend to be a beauty lover. And if that kind of beauty content sounds good to you, I hope you will subscribe. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Oh yeah, I'm doing something else in this video besides duping the vibes of this palette. I'm also going to open the next two drawers in my makeup advent calendar. This was the Yes Style advent calendar, but now it's full of makeup that I already had. My friend Julia stocked it with my own makeup so that I could open up the drawers and be surprised by being reunited with my own stuff. And on Friday, I posted the video where I opened the first 4 drawers and did a look with them. And I'm going to open the 5th drawer and the 6th drawer today and try to incorporate what's in there into my look. This is drawer number 5. Ah, it's a lip product. So Lunar Beauty did release lip products with this collection, and I actually do really like the colors of those lip products. I brought this Juvia's Place lip liner over here. It's in the shade Sweet Nothing. I brought it over here to use because I feel like it's a pretty good kind of like color match for the kinds of things he released. But this won't be too much of a departure from that either. It's Bobbi Brown Crushed Lip Color in Bare. It's a nude, it's a soft, maybe slightly pinky nude on me, and I feel like I can still put it together with the eye look that I'm planning to do, so that's perfect. All right, here's box number 6. Okay, oh, this is perfect. Okay, same situation, kind of. This is M Cosmetics Color Drop Serum Blush in Rose Milk. This is similar to the thing that I brought over to use with this look, which is the Holika Holika Nude Drop Lumi Cheek and Bronzed Honey. They're both really kind of like lightly colored, glossy, slightly dewy cream or liquid. This one's a cream and this one's a liquid cheeks. So perfect. I'll just use this one instead of using this one. I brought this one over because I'm like desperately trying to finally pan it and it's almost gone. But these will work beautifully with the look. So excellent. This is all of my palettes and magnetic palettes of singles with the exception of one big one, which I'll hold up in a second. And you know, there might be one in the advent calendar, I don't really know. I haven't really combed over this to see if anything's missing. This is the last magnetic palette, this kind of big magnetic palette, which I usually just stick in the back of that and lean it up against the wall, but it doesn't fit in any of the slots. Hi, here we are. So what I do when I dupe the vibes is I look at a picture of the palette, and I have a picture right here. And I pretend for a moment as though I actually do have the palette before me, and I ask myself what I would do first. Like, what's the look that my subconscious is craving to create from this palette? And then I go through that motion, like I take the color that I would take if I had the palette, I just find it or something like it in my collection. So I know what I would do. I would be wanting to create kind of a rich, smoky, sultry, Prussian blue look. So I'm going to find something to stand in for the color called Deep Sea. It's like a shimmery, rich, deep Prussian blue. I want to put that all over my lids and then build from there. Okay, I glanced through my collection and I actually found quite a number of things that would work, or like combinations of things that would work, even though I'm not a huge blue lover and I don't have very much blue eyeshadow. The thing that looks like it's probably the closest actual dupe is this shade Victory here in the Artemis palette, the Alter Ego Artemis palette. But I found another combination that I think I'm more excited to use. So this right here is ACD4 from Adept Cosmetics. And this right here is from the Natasha Denona Gold palette. I can't remember the name of it, this gold palette shadow, but I'll look it up in a second. And I think that this gold palette shadow, it's a topper, so it's not going to give me like that rich, deep color that I want, but in terms of the shade, the slightly greeny, deep blue, it's perfect. And the Adept Cosmetics one, ACD4, is a really, really rich, thick, goopy, reflective shade, but it's a bit too blue. So I feel like by putting this all over my eyes and then putting this on top of it, I'll get the look I want. The name of the Natasha Denona shade is Aurora from the Gold palette. I'm going to proceed now to do what I just told you I was planning to do. Okay, there we go. I do feel like I have something that color-wise is really similar now to Deep Sea from the Lunar Beauty palette, but because I layered those two pretty extraordinary eyeshadows, when I swatched the blue one, when I swatched ACD4, the Adept Cosmetics one, I found that it had some shifts in it that I wasn't expecting. I didn't know it was going to be so dimensional. So by layering dimensional shadow over dimensional shadow, I feel like I've actually gotten something much more exciting than I would have gotten if I'd gone with that one from the Artemis palette that was like a closer color dupe, but maybe even more exciting and dimensional than what I would have gotten if I actually had the Lunar Beauty palette and had gone in with it. So the next thing I'm gonna do is to take Aurora, the same shadow that I just layered on top, and go in with a brush and use it to blend out the edges of this more dense application of shadow. Because it's a bit of a topper, I feel like I can use it to soften the edges and then I'll build from there. And I'm using the rougher brush number 13 for this. I really like a very small, fluffy blending brush to buff out the edges of a shape that I've laid down on my eye with my fingertips. So the next steps on the lid for me, if I had this palette, would be to use something to soften the line of, even though I've blended it out, it's still a little bit harsh. There's like this tiny strip of almost a bare skin between my brow and where the eyeshadow starts. So there's one in the palette Flare that looks like it would do that job. I'll find something to do that same thing. But before doing that, I'm gonna put the shadows that I have put on my lid on my lower lash line and buff them out. That's what I would do if I were working with Deep Sea from the Lunar Beauty palette. I'm going to keep using this same tiny brush to do that. It's fluffy enough that I really get a nice buffed out lower lash line, but it's small enough that it doesn't go everywhere. Let's find something that I can use to soften like the outer edges above under the brow and around the outside, something sparkly and sheer. Here is Sparks from the Natasha Denona Gold palette. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm actually going in with the same brush that I have been using. I've buffed enough shadow off of it that I'm not worried it's going to deposit any blue pigment where I don't want it. Okay, and the last thing that I would do if I were working with this palette and I wanted to finish off this look, which is looking pretty wishy-washy, like pretty blown out, is that I would take probably I would alternate between both of the darker shades, the dark Prussian blue matte and the dark sparkly black, and deepen up the outer corner and just give it some structure. And then I'd put some black eyeliner on my waterline, and I would deepen up the lower lash line a little bit with that black. So I'm going to find some dark blues and blacks that I can work with to execute that task. I really love the black in the Persona Cosmetics Identity 2 palette, Limitless. So I'm going to keep that on hand. And then I'm going to use the dark Prussian blue. Both of them are kind of Prussian blue. The dark blue cream to powder mattes in the Alter Ego Artemis palette. And I'm going to start with the Rephr 03 to place the shadows, and then I'll buff them out with the same brush that I have been using, the 13. Yeah, and I added the same cream to powder matte to my lower lash line. I feel like there's already a lot more depth and structure than there was, but I'm going to go ahead and add the black for even more of that. And I will also add this black eyeliner to my waterline. It's the Urban Decay 24/7 Slide On Glide On in Perversion, I think. Yeah, Perversion. I'm actually going to pop that in first, and then while it's still a little bit damp, I'll blend it out with the pencil brush, and then I'll address my lids again. Okay, that was the ticket. I feel like I'm really starting to love this. Going in with the black shadow from the Persona Identity 2 in my outer corner. That's it. That is the ticket. This is exactly the look that I've been imagining. Every time I've looked at this palette, this is the look that I've craved, and I've just gotten it without actually buying this palette. So I'm going to put on some mascara, clean up this fallout, give you a close-up of the look, and then I'll zoom out to put on the rest of my makeup and talk this over with you, because I actually have a lot of feelings about this palette, feelings that I've developed just working with its image and the shadows that I already own. There's the look. In the close-up, you might have seen that I have a little bump on my brow right here. It's because I was just plucking some stray hairs that are growing down way below my eyebrows. And you know, sometimes when you pluck a hair, there's like a little reaction and then the swelling goes down after a while, but I just did it right before I started the video. So it'll probably go down, the swelling, before I even take this eye look off at the end of the day. I'm not worried about it. I love the look. This, again, is exactly what I've been wanting to do. I'm going to quickly just put the rest of the makeup on. I'm going to go really as minimal as I can. I feel like with a look like this, I can very quickly look like I'm, you know, I've put on a full face to go to some sort of like holiday party, influencer holiday party or photo shoot or something. And that's not what I want to look like. I want to look like I'm just here in my skin with this fun eye look on. So I'm going to go really light on the lip color, really light on this cheek, which is already quite a light glossy glaze for the cheek anyway. And I think that that's it in terms of what else I'm going to apply. I'll check in with you when it's done. So here's the revelation that I have about this palette after having duped its vibes with the makeup that I already own. I just am only interested in like 4 of the eyeshadow. You know, to be frank, actually, I'm only interested in 3 of the eyeshadows, which are the 3 in the bottom right-hand corner. So the shiny Prussian blue, the matte Prussian blue, and the sparkly black. I'm interested in what I can do with eye looks if I'm basing them around those colors. And when I appreciate the fact that the palette also has the shimmery shade in the upper left-hand corner, because that's the kind of thing I do use on my brow bone, and the kind of thing I think a lot of people like to use on their inner corners. And I also appreciate the sort of shiny, shifting, silvery shade in the middle of the top row, because that's the kind of look that's the kind of shadow that I like to use. I think if I were to dupe the vibes of like the second look that I would do if I had this palette, I would feature that shadow, but it would probably be pretty much this look with that shadow on the middle of the lid. And so I could go ahead and dupe the vibes of that by just finding a shadow, and I have several, that has that dimensional sort of like soft gold silver shift and putting that on the middle of my lids or even on my inner corner. And I have no interest in really any of the rest of them, least of all that entire middle row of mattes. Not only do I not use those shades very often and use those kinds of mattes very often, but I have those kinds of mattes several times over in other palettes. I'm also not interested in the gold and the bronze and the regular gunmetal silver and the matte gray, again, because I have those shadows several times over. Looking at this palette and feeling excited about it, those feelings are really just me realizing that I kind of like the idea of doing some smoky blue eye looks right now in December of 2020. But I can do that without buying this palette. I just did it. The other thing that I realized as I was applying this look, the other thought that came to me, is that this is really, for me, a Natasha Denona gold palette look. This is the kind of look I think of myself as applying with the gold palette. I think that this Adept Cosmetics single ACD4 is definitely kind of deeper, richer, more reflective of a super blue than the greeny, like the soft greeny python blues in the Natasha Denona gold palette. But I feel like I could have gotten a similar look to this by just layering those gold palette shadows deeply over each other, maybe even spraying a little setting spray on a brush. I could have gotten it. And there are a lot of other shades in this palette that have pretty much twins in the gold palette, the bronzes, the golds, and some of the mattes. So if you already have the gold palette, or if you have wanted the gold palette and have like collected other shadows in lieu of it, then there's a good chance that the looks that you would be making if you had this palette are looks that you can definitely already make with what you own. This doesn't look at a glance anything like the gold palette, but at least for me, when you filter it through the lens of like what I love to do and the kinds of looks that I love to create, it would be doubling up what I already have simply because I already have the gold palette in my collection. So that's it. That's me duping the vibes of the Lunar Beauty Endless Eclipse palette. What a prescient name. I wonder if he came up with that before we had sort of entered in this, this time that feels somewhat like an endless eclipse, or if he decided to name it that because he was like, this time feels somewhat like an endless eclipse. Either way, I do think it's a beautiful release, and congratulations to the brand and to Manny. I mean, I think it's really lovely. It's on point, and the fact that I'm not going to buy it myself, I'm not besmirching the palette. It has everything to do with my own habits as a consumer and my own desires for myself, and nothing at all to do with like shading this brand. I mean, I think that you guys know that, but I think that it's worth saying here at the end. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're duping the vibes of this palette or anything else right now. Thank you for being here, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself today, because that's what will make you the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.